Since its establishment in April 1964, the Nigerian Air Force has remained a formidable instrument for preserving Nigeria's territorial integrity as well as the maintenance of internal cohesion and security.
To look at the history of the Nigerian Air Force from 1964, the Air Force has played a very crucial role in dealing with the situation during the Nigerian Civil War.
Over the years, the Nigerian Air Force, through employment of air power, has become a major platform for projecting national power abroad, especially within the West African sub-region. From curtailing insurrections at home, the Nigerian Air Force has continued to play major roles in Nigeria's peace efforts across Africa. From a small transport unit, the Nigerian Air Force has grown in leaps and bounds to become a force to reckon with in Africa. 53 years down the lane, how has the Nigerian Air Force fared in fulfilling its assigned statutory responsibilities? This is a story of the Nigerian Air Force evolution, expeditions, and contribution to national security. Established in 1964 by an Act of Parliament, the Nigerian Air Force was tasked primarily with the defense of the Federal Republic of Nigeria by air.
We were the first to be recruited, 10 of us, and sent to Ethiopia to train at the first cadets of the Nigerian Air Force, nucleus of the Nigerian Air Force. And we went to Ethiopia in 1962. From there, only 4 of us graduated, completed our primary training in Bishoftu, later proceeded to Asmara in Ethiopia and did our basic training, which we completed in 1964, and then returned home, where we were received by the then Minister of Defense and his colleagues in 1964. So that's how the Air Force started. The 4 of us I can mention, as you said, I'm the last one standing, but it comprised of Yusadoko, who became a chief of air staff at one time, Air Commodore Falokwe, who we lost only last year. Then, of course, Onyerimba, who we lost very early stages of our return to the country, somewhere around 1966, even before the Civil War started.
The statutory obligations of the Nigerian Air Force as an integral arm of the Armed Forces of Nigeria are enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Section 217, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, clearly sets out these roles, among others, to include defending Nigeria from external aggression, maintaining its territorial integrity and securing its borders from violation on land, sea, or air, suppressing insurrection and acting in aid of civil authorities to restore peace. The establishment of the Nigerian Air Force was also to fulfill the initial desire to have a full complement of military defense system that would ensure the territorial integrity and internal security of Nigeria. At that time, there were no serious internal security threats to Nigeria. So, much of the initial efforts were focused on developing the airlift capability of the Nigerian Air Force in order to transport Nigerian contingents to United Nations peacekeeping operations instead of depending on foreign air forces.
Most of the exercises were helping our troops to into some skirmishes, like in Chad. When we had problems in Chad, we had the Cameroon crisis, we had the crisis in Zimbabwe, we had also, of course, the ECOMOG, to assist the ECOMOG.
With only one base in Kaduna, the Nigerian Air Force was still at its infancy when the Civil War broke out in July 1967. It had only Piaggio 149D trainer aircraft, as well as the Nord Atlas and Donia 27 and 28 transport aircraft in its inventory.
We had zero combat readiness when the Civil War broke out. As a matter of fact, we were caught off guard. The Biafrans had a better military or air combat aircraft than we had. They acquired early what was called the B-26 and B-25. Those were bombers used during the Second World War in Europe and Co. The old dilapidated aircraft that the Biafrans inherited, and they started using it by our own pilots who are trained with us.
With no combat aircraft, the Nigerian Air Force was least prepared for the Civil War. However, it did rise up to the challenge and played active role in the military action that quelled the secessionists who had threatened the corporate existence of Nigeria as a nation.
That Civil War was the first taste of challenge for the Nigerian Air Force, because we have to give air support for the Nigerian Army, who are moving into location. The one div was in Makurdi, and when the rebels broke into the then Midwest or Bendel, came to Benin and then to Ore, another division was set up by the Nigerian Army, commanded by the late General Murtala Mohammed. I remember very well that all we had then were some Piaggios, F-27s, and maybe 1 or 2 DC-3s. And I remember bombing missions were conducted on a DC-3 where you roll the bomb on rollers while you tie the man with a rope to hold him back, and you open the passenger door and begin to throw these bombs out. That's how it all started. And then while government was negotiating with countries to assist us, we were able to get some support of some aircraft, the L-29s from Czechoslovakia, and they came, and our pilots were virtually doing on-the-job training to even have familiarization of the aircraft, and they are out there into combat.
As the war progresses, the Nigerian Air Force acquired combat aircraft, including Jet Provost, L-29 Delphins, as well as the MiG-15 and 17 fighters from Egypt, Sudan, Czech Republic, and Soviet Union to prosecute the war. These aircraft were deployed to support federal troops along the Makurdi-Benin and Calabar-Port Harcourt axis of attack on the Biafrans.
As you realize, the war got the Air Force to expand beyond its capabilities, really. We were thrown into the war without any platforms that we would use to prosecute any war. But as God will have it, within a very short time, we rose up to the occasion.
The Nigerian Air Force later acquired Illusion 28 medium bombers for bombing strategic targets under the control of Biafrans. Interdiction missions were conducted deep into areas under the Biafran control to neutralize their air assets as well as deny them the use of sea and airport for logistics supply.
When we now acquire sophisticated equipment, our first other target that I did not mention is to destroy their own air power. That's very important in warfare.
In addition to undertaking airdrop missions using the DC-3 aircraft taken over from the Nigerian Airways to provide on troops with logistics resupply, the Nigerian Air Force also evacuated wounded troops from the front line. As crude as the employment of air power was then, there were critical moments when the Nigerian Air Force saved the day during the Civil War.
At one time, the Third Marine Commando they ran out of ammunition, ran out of supplies, and they were crying out to the then head of state, General Gawan. They said, look, it's like save our souls. So they now asked the Navy to try and send a boat or a ship to supply them with arms, ammunition, and supplies they needed. Unfortunately for the Navy, when they went, the Biafrans sent their own attack boats and dropped them back. Dropped the Navy unit back. So they now came to the Air Force. Air Force, it's your turn. So what I did was, as the commander officer, I deployed 1 or 2 DC-3 aircraft. I also asked the Airways, Nigerian Airways, to be involved. They also deployed 1 or 2 F-27 aircraft. So we loaded them with the arms, ammunition, and the supplies they needed. Now, we were not sure who was holding the airport at the time, whether it's the Biafrans or the Nigerian troops. So what we were told is, look, when you come to the airport, look, if you see a white flag on the runway, it's a sign that it is under our control, the Nigerian troops. If there's no white flag, it's not ours. The Biafrans are in control. So we flew there. We flew there. I was flying one of the aircraft. The Airways was following us in their F-27. We arrived Calabar Airport. We circled, came lower, looking for the flag. We couldn't see it. Circled, came lower. We didn't see it. Now, a tough decision now had to be made. Flying from Lagos to Calabar took us 3 hours because there's usually very, very bad weather on the way from Benin on. To circumvent the weather to get there was a problem. Having flown nearly 3 hours, do we now go back and say mission not accomplished? Because the way the SOS was made, looked like our people were about to be wiped out if nothing was done. So a decision had to be taken. By the grace of God, we decided to say, okay, let's go lower and see. So we went lower. I was on the control. Mogonogo was my co-pilot. If you knew what Mogonogo was, another strong. As we approached the runway, we saw troops on either side of the runway, standing. with their guns like that. Are they our troops? Are they Biafrans? We didn't know. We continue all the same. As we're about to touch down, they all went down. As we touched down, they came out, they were pointing their guns at us, and they were all wearing Biafran uniform on every side of the runway, in Biafran uniform. So what did we do? The danger was that if we attempted to take off, if it's Biafrans, they will shoot because they know that these are Nigerian aircraft. If it's Nigerian, they will shoot because at that time, the Biafrans had acquired 1 or 2 DC-3s, which they captured when they took over Enugu Airport. So they had a DC-3 with them, so either side would have shot, thinking it was the enemy aircraft. So another tough decision made us to go to the end of the runway, taxi back, and so coming back, we were looking at their faces to see if, even if we see a Yoruba man with a mask, something to say, these are people. Until we came to the tarmac, before we saw Adekunle coming out of the thing and jumping like a small boy, seeing Nigerian Air Force aircraft with supplies. So we were jumping. So when we stopped and showed them the aircraft, we said, sir, why is it that the place is surrounded by Biafran soldiers? He said that was the only last resort technique they had to have. He said they all asked their people to wear Biafran uniform. They were using bayonet to deceive Biafrans. Said, D.I. So they were Nigerians in Biafran uniform.
The post-war era heralded the restructuring of the Nigerian Air Force, an effort to consolidate on its operational capability. The first major transformation was to restructure the Nigerian Air Force into 3 field commands and headquarters Nigerian Air Force at the Ministry of Defense in Lagos.
For Civil War, that's when Ikwe, who had been in Germany all this time as a defense advisor, came in around 1970 to head the Air Force. So he was the one whom you would say started the transformation process of the Air Force in terms of restructuring. And by the grace of God, he appointed me to head the panel that drew out what was known as the NAF establishment, which drew out the command structure of the Air Force and formulated what today are known as various commands, groups, wings, squadrons, etc. It is that document that recommended 3 commands: a tactical command, and a training command, and a logistic command.
That is from 1970 upwards. Now we started getting organized properly. We were into commands. We got 2 commands, the training command and of course the operational command. You know, we had only training command and the strike command before. During my time, then I introduced the logistics command, so the 3rd leg. So that was what we were building on. We had a lot of platforms for the war. We had to discard some, because you can have very many aircraft, variety of aircraft in your inventory. You would have problems of maintenance, training, personnel, and things like that. So the Air Force really organized itself and had fighter aircraft, air defense aircraft, transport, and helicopters. So we built on that. And when I took over in 1980, I improved on that. Kayenji was completed then, and we had our training unit there. The squadron training, with weapons training, was in Kayenji. And of course, Makodi remained the strike headquarters. Yes. Logistic command was there in Ikeja, right there. So we beefed it up, it became a command of its own. It will give us the right support that we needed.
The tactical and training commands were the first to be established in 1978, while the logistic command was later established in 1981. Each command consisted of groups, wings, and squadrons, which replaced the former formations. More platforms were acquired to enhance operational capability of the Nigerian Air Force, and efforts were made to domesticate training and build capacity for self-reliance. This period ushered in the establishment of a number of Nigerian Air Force training institutions across the country. This was to better position the Nigerian Air Force to meet assigned statutory obligations, especially in the area of training pilots to man its growing fleet. As part of fleet expansion effort, the Nigerian Air Force acquired the Lockheed C-130 Hercules and MiG-21 fighter aircraft to boost its operational capability.
Of course, as you know, during peacetime, the first time of any military service is training. And the Air Force was able to acquire quite a few more platforms, which it was using and training people.
While this transformation was ongoing, Nigeria witnessed a major religious crisis barely a decade after the Civil War. The Meltasini sect had taken the city of Kano unaware by unleashing an orgy of terror and bloodbath from 18th of December 1980 to 3rd of January 1981. Over 4,000 innocent lives were lost in the 12-day mayhem, many of whose eyes, nose, ears, and tongues were removed by their attackers. The Nigerian Air Force was at it again to live up to its statutory obligation of defending the nation against insurrection.
We were tasked to suppress this insurrection of Meltasini. And I can also tell you that we did a good job, even though it was a flying training group. Luckily, we had the MiG-21s there, as well as L-39.
Unlike the Nigerian Civil War, the Nigerian Air Force this time was better equipped to support the efforts of the Nigerian Army and police.
We deployed the MiG-21s as well as the L-39 in support of 3rd Brigade. And what did we do generally? We flew reconnaissance mission to let the army know the stronghold of these people. We were able to use limited offensive with MiG-21. It also helped to bring the Meltasini uprising under control.
At about this time in April 1983, violent incursion into Nigeria by Chadian forces and armed rebels increased along the Nigerian border with Chad Republic. This resulted partly from prospects for oil exploration around the Lake Chad Basin and claims of ownership over emerging islands as the lake dries up.
The Lake Chad was shrinking, and as the lake was shrinking, the populace on both sides were moving with the shrinking lake. So, and after some time, the Chadians now incurred into Nigerian territory.
The inability of both countries to resolve the situation through diplomatic efforts led to military confrontation. The Nigerian Army, supported by the Nigerian Air Force, was tasked to push the Chadian forces out of Nigerian territory.
While I was there, unfortunately, there was an escalation of incursion, by Chadian forces, on the island we are occupying, which belong to the Nigerian government or Nigerian part. That part was occupied by our own forces, but along the line, the Chadian forces came and pushed us out of the island. And at a point, we were unable to control what was happening.
We are based in Makodi, that's the Tactical Air Command, and we are called in to support the army to push back the Chadians.
At that time, I think I was a flight lieutenant. The political angle wasn't my own whatever. Mine was to fly missions. I was just a flight lieutenant. Carry missions, these are your targets, go and deliver. But those at the operational level and the strategic level, that was their business. But you won't believe it, within less than a week, they had gone deep. We're using mostly the MiG-21s with all those Russian armaments and the Afjet. So we did, and some helicopters. We didn't have attack helicopters, so it was mostly. And at that time, I think the Afjet, they were just used only cannons and rockets. But the MiG-21s were carrying their full package.
Aside the resurgence of Metsasini sect in some parts of northeastern Nigeria, there was relative calm across the country from the mid-1980s to 1990s. This period was nevertheless characterized by Nigerian involvement in peacekeeping operations within and outside the West African sub-region. Chief among these operations were the African Union and United Nations-led operations in Angola, Rwanda, Mozambique, Namibia, and Somalia. By August 1990, the security situation in Liberia had degenerated following the tussle for political power between President Doe and rebel factions led by Charles Taylor. Determined to prevent the crisis from spreading into neighboring states, the leaders of ECOWAS countries raised a joint military intervention force, the Economic Community Monitoring Group, ECOMOG, to intervene in the crisis. This brought about the involvement of the Nigerian Armed Forces, including the Nigerian Air Force, in the crisis in Liberia.
The role of the Air Force in bringing peace back to Liberia and Sierra Leone was really crucial. There were important moments where the ground forces would have been disgraced. If Air Force had not come in, Alpha Jet offensive had not come in, when the army were under siege in Monrovia, the situation would have been different.
We were deployed into the ECOMOG theater in 1990, I think November, and we deployed into Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone was the operational base from which we launched air operations into Liberia. I was deployed with 6 Alpha Jets and 2 helicopters. The helicopters were basically in the support role. Support role as in casualty, evacuation, troop movements, light liaison duties, generally.
The arrival of offensive Alpha Jet changed everything because Charles Taylor forces, they were totally unprepared for air support. They had no solution to our bombardments.
Despite its many successes, the Nigerian Air Force was faced with a number of limitations that undermined its employment of air power during the Liberia and Sierra Leone crises. These challenges were to later pave the way for a major transformation that impacted on the operational capability of the Nigerian Air Force and its ability to combat emerging security challenges at home.
First and foremost, the deployment of offensive air, the Alpha Jet, was a rule that was far beyond the capability of the aircraft, because it was primarily bought for training. Another challenge as far as the aircraft platform was concerned was lack of night capability. We didn't have also ISR, which was crucial. So what we were doing, we were relying more on recce. We sent out Alpha Jets to carry out recce missions. And based on some of their reports, we were able to formulate some attack plans. But it is not the same thing for you to have an ISR.
We have shortage of pilots. So, of course, we suffer fatigue.
Generally, manpower, even engineering and others. So everybody was stretched. Everybody was stretched. Another important aircraft that we didn't have a rescue helicopter. Operation Sandstorm also exposed the needs for us to have helicopter gunship, because the enemy had it and we didn't have it, and they used them to devastating effect.
It is worthy to note that many of these recommendations have been implemented. In 2000, the Nigerian Air Force acquired the Mi-35 helicopter gunship and later the Mi-24V variant, while the F-7NI fighters were acquired in 2009 as fighter interceptors and to complement the Alpha Jet in fighter ground attack role. In 2010, the Augusta 109 light utility helicopter were inducted into the Nigerian Air Force inventory, in addition to the ATR-42 maritime patrol aircraft and King Air 350I Beechcraft for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance role. These aircraft helped to boost the Nigerian Air Force fleet and enhance its operational capability to combat the Boko Haram insurgency and other emerging threats to national security. Today, contemporary threats to national security in Nigeria are more from within than the outside. These challenges range from ethno-religious crisis, kidnapping, armed robbery, cattle rustling, armed banditry, pipeline vandalism, militancy and oil theft to insurgency. To combat these challenges, the Nigerian Air Force is not only currently deployed, but has continued to play prominent roles across the different geopolitical zones.
We are deployed in the northeast under Operation Lafia Dole. We are also participating in the operation in the south-south, Delta Safe. We were also in the southwest, Awase, and we have also continued to play a very crucial role in dealing with some of the security challenges that we are facing in the northwest and the north central. Recently, our airplanes or our helicopters and ISR platforms were deployed to southern Kaduna to also monitor what is happening. One of the most significant contributions that the Air Force have made in recent times is in fighting terrorism in the northeast. And we have employed air power to create the enabling environment for the surface forces to be able to conduct their operations effectively. And that, I think, has ultimately led to the situation that we are today witnessing, where there are very little or no challenges in terms of Boko Haram coming out as an organized force to kill innocent Nigerians.
There is no major operations, clearance operations, or advanced operations that the land forces have undertaken that the air component did not give them the necessary cover. There are too many to mention. One in Talarajikin, where the air component provided the necessary close air support and took out the insurgents before the arrival of the land forces. We also have situations in Kangarawa. There was the one in Brook. A couple of days ago, we had to engage the insurgents before the land forces took over Gubaran. There are so many operations that we've involved without which it would have been possible for land forces to have a free day.
All the missions we've had in the last 3-4 months since the rain stopped and we have stepped up activities have been supported by the Nigerian Air Force. And not only that we have been supported very, very well.
Similarly, in the South-South, oil theft has become extremely dangerous, not profitable at all. We have used the EC-135 helicopter to make it extremely difficult for those that are stealing our national crude to get away with what they have stolen.
We work jointly with other surface forces like the Army and the Navy, and at times we carry out independent air operations where we locate some of these badges at remote locations where the Army or the Navy cannot get into. We strike them mostly at daytime, and then when they discovered they had no respite, they resorted to night illegal activities. And then we also had to refine our own strategies by attacking them late evenings or very early in the mornings when they must have been returning from their illegal businesses. So most times we get them and we've not allowed them any respite at all.
Some of the successes of the operation we have conducted, it was as a result of the active participation of the air asset that we're able to achieve that, because they don't know the direction from which they are going to attack. Unlike the land where they have the route or the creeks where they can escape through, the air we cover a very large space, and they wouldn't know when the air asset or from where the air asset to attack. So the noise of the asset alone is enough to scare the miscreants, and they are not always comfortable when they know that there's air participation in any operation.
Amid enormous security challenges and dwindling national resources, the Nigerian Air Force has continued to make steady progress in recent time towards the attainment of its statutory responsibilities. The Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, speaks on some of the factors responsible for these feats.
So the most important thing that we've been able to take advantage of is the enabling environment created by the federal government under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, which has made it very easy for us to really go out and discharge our responsibilities, which has made it easy for us to get remittances done to companies that are supplying spare parts to us. The enabling environment in terms of the political direction that the government has given, and everybody is left in no doubt as to the fact that governance under the present administration revolves around the common man. Therefore, whatever we are doing, we are working around the clock to ensure that every community in Nigeria is secured, every Nigerian is able to go about pursuing his or her legitimate aspirations without any difficulty. So I think the enabling environment is very important. Secondly, of course, we have also tried to build capacity within the Air Force in terms of training. We have trained over 118 pilots from 2015 to now. That is ab initio training to completion of their training, about 118. We are currently training 70. And we have also tried as much as possible to build capacity within the engineering specialty. We have trained over 200 engineers outside Nigeria to have the requisite knowledge and skills to be able to maintain aircraft. And that has impacted positively on the serviceability of airplanes that we have. We have been able to reactivate 11 airplanes that were not flying before, but are today flying on account of the efforts in the area of capacity building. In addition to that, of course, we have also recognized the importance of the human being, who is the most important resource that a nation has, is the human being. That human being that is supposed to go out there to maintain airplanes, to fly airplanes, to undertake missions. And we have tried as much as possible to attend to the welfare needs of personnel of the Nigerian Air Force, whether they are officers or they are airmen, provided accommodation, expanded our health facilities, and we have also gone ahead to provide an opportunity for the dependents of our personnel to have some skills within the barrack. Your barrack skill acquisition programs have been introduced, at least in 4 major bases, Kaduna, Makurdi, Lagos, and Maiduguri, where we are fighting. We have also been able to see how we can add value to that society. And NAFOA has also done a lot in trying to support us and to see that we are able to give orphans the opportunity to live their dreams after what they have gone through. So I think the totality of all these factors have actually contributed significantly to what we've been able to achieve in the last 18 months. And we have also taken full advantage of the talents that are in Nigerian universities. We have entered into MOU with 15 Nigerian universities. We have also entered into MOU with public research institutions. And what we have done is to try to see how we can take advantage of the talents in these institutions with our own talents locally within the Air Force to go out and look at some of the maintenance challenges that we are facing as a service. These are challenges that would have been forced to ask foreigners to come and assist us. But because of the fact that we are looking inwards and we are working side by side or working together with Nigerian universities, we've been able to go into research and development. And I think that has substantially impacted positively on serviceability status of airplanes. Recently, in collaboration with Ahmadu Bello University, University of Maiduguri, ATBU in Bauchi, and Yaba College of Tech, we've been able to design a test bench for the anti-skid system on the Alpha jets. The test bench is what you require after servicing an anti-skid system. You use a test bench to confirm whether you have repaired the component properly or not before putting it on the aircraft. And that we've been able to do. We didn't have that before. And that has saved us, that has improved our serviceability, because if you repair and put on the aircraft, sometimes you end up destroying more components. But now that we have a test bench, after repairing, you test it on the test bench. If you are comfortable with that, before you now go ahead to put on the aircraft. So that has impacted positively on serviceability of airplanes. Similarly, we have developed a hydraulic diaphragm locally in Nigeria, in collaboration with some higher institutions and a company in Ibadan. This hydraulic diaphragm is a very important component that is used in the hydraulic system of the helicopter gunships that we have in the Air Force. In the past, we used to order for these diaphragms outside. It takes not less than 6 months to get it across to us, and at a very exorbitant rate. But now we are producing the same hydraulic diaphragm at about 5,000, maximum 7,000 naira with everything put together, as against what they were quoting from other companies outside Nigeria that were so exorbitant and time-consuming. So, area of research and development, we have established an Air Force Research and Development Center where we have pulled together all our resources in terms of those that have gone to read beyond the master's degree. We have so many of them with PhDs in aerospace engineering that are working together with other universities to make sure that we address our maintenance challenges. And that is really impacting positively on our operations.
To effectively and efficiently combat the emerging security challenges, the Nigerian Air Force had to review its force structure in order to consolidate its presence across the country. This led to the recent establishment of an additional field command and 9 specialized units.
We saw the need to establish an additional field command, and that was, a paper was articulated and put forward to the Air Council. Approval was given, and we've been able to establish the Special Operations Command. We have also established quick response groups in several parts of the country. We have one in Imo State in Owerri. We have one in Plateau State and in Kerang. And we also have one in Zamfara State in Gusau. We are also planning to have one in Ipetu, Ijesha, in Osun State. All these units we feel are very essential if we are to be very effective in providing the security that we all desire to have so that we can pursue our aspirations, or Nigerians can pursue their aspirations without any difficulty. The Air Force has expanded, and therefore from an Air Force that was rolling out bombs from the cabins of an aircraft in 1967 to 1970. Today we have an Air Force that officers and men are sitting down in the comfort of their offices somewhere in Yola and guiding a manned aerial vehicle to go and fight terrorists some 200 to 250 kilometers away from Yola. So even from this illustration, you can see clearly that we have really moved further. And if we have, then you must also look at the structure and make sure that you have an adequate and appropriate structure that can support this expansion. In addition to the command, of course, even at the headquarters level, we have now expanded the medical services that was a directorate before. Today we have a complete branch. We have the Chief of Medical Services, and that too has to do with the kind of expansion we are seeing in the system. We have more hospitals, we have referral hospitals, and you cannot have a directorate to handle all that. And we are looking at other areas. Definitely, like I said, even in terms of training of recruits, we used to train 1,000 recruits every year. Today, we are training 4,000 recruits every year. We have expanded the infrastructure and the recruit training institution, and therefore, if you have this number of people coming, certainly you will require additional infrastructure in terms of medical services for the recruits that are coming into the service. You need to expand your schools, and that's why we have a Air Force Girls Comprehensive Secondary School in Abuja now, which is one of the best secondary schools, I must say. And we are also constructing the Air Force Comprehensive Secondary School in Shasha. We have we have finished the construction in Abuja, and the girls are already there. And we hope by September, God willing, we'll have girls from our units in Shasha attending their schools in Shasha there rather than going all the way from Shasha to Ikeja. We are also converting the secondary school in Kaduna into a boarding secondary school. We have expanded the infrastructure, the number of classes. All these efforts are done to accommodate the expansion that we are witnessing in the service.
As the Nigerian Air Force celebrates its 53rd anniversary, there is no doubt that its contributions to national security in Nigeria and regional security in West Africa is enormous.
I would say they have done very well in terms of the supportive role they have done to the land forces. If you remember, most of the logistics and the supportive role of in terms of medical evacuation, transportation of our troops, and including the interdiction, by adding value to what the land forces are doing. Coming to internal security across the country, they also do their own bit by giving special forces to assist in areas where we have serious problem of this harassment problem with the farmers. So also in the northeast, by attending to the needs of the land forces at any moment they were called upon to come and assist, or whenever they were asked to engage some of the insurgents, they are always on call, and they are always effective in all their roles that were assigned to them. The Nigerian Air Force has really shown that they are professional. They have shown that they are capable of assisting or supporting the land forces. God bless Nigerian Air Force.